Welcome to This Week in the PNFL. I'm your host, Mark Hill. Along for the ride, as always, are my two wonderful co-hosts, Mitch Grawl and Dean Chambers. How you doing, gentlemen?
Very good. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. Good. So, a lot happened this week, this past week with the games. We're going to get all into that, and I think we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. So, first game on the list is Washington going to visit Anaheim, and Washington ended up taking that game 17-16. We're going to put Dean on deck and have Dean start on this one. Dean?
Yeah, this game is the one that, I really thought Anaheim had a chance in this game, but they missed many opportunities to score. And, of course, as you may remember, watching the game, the Redskins came back and scored a touchdown and an extra point attempt. That touchdown tied it, and then they kicked the extra point and won by 1 point. So the Redskins lead the NFC East and the NFC as well by one game, but it's really by an extra point, and that was the extra point that won that game against Anaheim.
Okay, Mitch.
Well, 17-16 game, there was some tough defense in there. I was looking at, Anaheim, knocked out Kyler Murray, our previous week's player of the week. And, you thought that maybe that was going to impact the game, but, Rosen came in and did a nice job, completing 70% of his passes, able to keep the chains moving a little bit there for Washington. Dobbs didn't have an awful game, but he didn't have a great game. He was efficient, but he couldn't get the ball in the end zone, at least from a passing standpoint. Though he did, was able to get, to keep the chains moving a little bit. But Dobbs will be back, I'm sure.
Yes, definitely. Next game, we have New York Giants going into Detroit to play the Lions, and ended up taking that game from the Lions 27-14. We're going to start this one with Mitch.
Well, the good Giants showed up this week. At least the good Giants offense showed up. 27 points there against Detroit. You had Daniel Jones, with 327 yards and a touchdown. So, I guess you sometimes don't know which Giants are going to show up, but now that puts them, if I'm not mistaken, 6-5, and they are definitely in that NFC playoff hunt. So, being this is a division rivalry game for the Falcons, I'm anxious to hear what Dean has to say about this one.
No, we're not on that one yet. We are on the Giants in Detroit. So.
Oh, I know they are, but they're both in his division. So
yeah, that's true. I digress. Let me rewind a little bit.
Yeah, JB, you gotta stick with me here.
For the Giants, and statistically, it didn't look like the Giants' defense is all that dominant, but they did keep Detroit from scoring in many occasions. So they played a bit of bend but don't break defense and did so effectively and had pretty solid offense, 410 yards total, won the game.
Yeah. Well, Detroit doesn't run the ball. They had 63 pass attempts, 11 rushing. So,
it's a little too unbalanced.
Yeah, that's just, you guys picked on me. I think it was early in the season when I ran it all pretty much most of the game. I never heard the end of that one from Dean from Mitch for about a week or so. But man, do you know how to pass the ball? And now on the flip side, you have a team that's sitting here just.
What did he say? You were running the Nebraska Cornhuskers offense?
Yeah, I was running the Cornhuskers offense or the old Army offense. Just run. And there's the the yin and yang.
I think Detroit's using the old BYU offense back from the 80s.
Okay. Next game, we have New Orleans going up into the Green Bay territory, and New Orleans happened to take this one in the cold tundra 25-18. Dean, you're on deck.
Yes, the Saints overcame 2 turnovers to win this game. They had 75% third down conversions, and I think those are the key differences in beating the Packers.
Okay. Quick, direct to the point. Mitch.
Yeah, this game really wasn't as close as what the score said it was. The New Orleans handled Green Bay, just had a couple of a couple of mishaps that kept the game close. So people better look out for New Orleans going forward.
Okay. Next game, we have San Francisco hosting Minnesota. And they took this one from the Vikings 19-7. Mitch.
Yeah, Minnesota is one of our division rivals, and so obviously we know how they play. Pretty, their tendencies, and defense, played strong. Still having trouble with the offense this year in Minnesota. So I don't, hopefully they don't figure that out when they play me next. But Minnesota a couple weeks ago blew out the Jets, right, 31-7, I think, and so thought this week they were going to handle San Francisco, but it wasn't the case.
Yep. Any given Saturday, anything can happen. Dean.
Yeah, I think the key thing here was the defense was pretty solid for Charlie's 49ers, and that made a difference. And that's they held Minnesota just a touchdown, 7 points.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah.
Yep. So it was 110 yards rushing, 197 passing, and that was pretty much it. Just held them down to only one touchdown after all that. So next game on the list, the New York Jets hosting the Seattle Seahawks, and they ended up taking that one 32-27. Dean, we're going to start with you on this one.
Yeah, at one point the Jets were leading 32-7, and then we had the huge Seattle comeback that happened. And I remember watching that thinking, if Seattle could just score one more time, they'd have this many points, they'd be down by this much. And the comeback happened, and then if I remember right, after that last score, your team went for an onside kick, and the Jets recovered it. So I think the key issue there was that, one, I remember the Jets took a 14-0 lead very early on, and it's really hard to overcome a 14-0 lead. The other thing I was noticing in the first half, and I haven't looked at your roster to see exactly what the ratings were, but it seemed like the Jets receivers were always a half a yard or a yard ahead of your defensive backs, just enough to be open and catch the ball, and they were catching those passes more often than not. So that seemed to make the biggest amount of difference at least in the first half, in the success of the Jets passing game.
On that, I would agree with that. They had a step on there, but also too, just the second downs. They were just, I don't know what my backs are doing. If they're just sitting there just watching the ball, picking daisies out in the middle of the field or whatever, but they're just not.
Yeah, in the second, your pass defense was more effective.
Yes,
and
but
that, I think, helped your offense put the quarterback together.
Yeah.
Quarterback is great, but can only fall so. And I've noticed this in my games at times too. You can only fall behind so far before it's really too much to. I mean, essentially, at the end of that game, your team ran out of time. I mean, if you had another 5 minutes to work with, you might have come back and scored another score to basically tie the game or possibly win.
Yeah, I agree. Mitch.
Well, I have a whole different take on this game. I thought, I thought that Zach Wilson did a great job. He actually helped, Brandon Faison win Player of the Week by throwing him 2 interceptions coming out of the gates in the second half. One run back is a pick six. So I really think player of the game should be Zach Wilson for his connections there with Brandon Faison, because without that, the Seattle might have actually won the game. And so, it was pretty crazy. And I actually remember thinking, why did you not onside kick at the end of the game versus the Jets getting the onside kick?
Well, we control that in the profile, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm like, oh man, we're kicking it deep. We're kicking it deep with like under 2 minutes to go, or whatever the heck it was. I don't know, but
anyway, yeah, that's a frustration. I wish you could select that, but the game selects it. So,
I'll tell you what, the special teams coach of the CPU has not done any of us any favors with those things.
No, has not at all. Not at all. Next game, we have Los Angeles taking on Indianapolis, and they ended up going into Indy and walking away with that one. Only 2 scores out of the game, so they ended up taking that one 14-0. Mitch.
Well, I mean, I think this game, and I'm sure you all agree, really fell on the fact that, Indianapolis's running back got hurt. J.J. Taylor, I mean, before he got hurt, he was averaging nearly 5 yards a carry. And when he went down, all that extra pressure fell on Kyle Allen. Everyone's, he's America's quarterback. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to withstand that one-sided affair there. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens going forward there without J.J. Taylor for a few weeks. But that was what I saw.
Okay, Dean.
Yeah, this win definitely keeps the Chargers in the hunt for postseason. It was a key win for them. As for Indianapolis, I don't know. I would have expected them to have been a bit more competitive than this. Their offense just didn't show up.
Yeah, they were still on the bus. They forgot to get off the bus. As we're
the running game got put on a cart and taken off the field, unfortunately.
Exactly. We're turning that last corner for the last 3 games. And the last 3 games are coming down to, the first one is Oakland going into Chicago. Low scoring affair. So a lot of defense, but Oakland ended up walking away with the victory 10-7. We're going to start with Dean on this. Then we're going to pivot over to the coach. Dean?
Well, I think the key issue here, and I know we raised this question and we talked about whether 1 or 2 points here and they made a difference, but Sam Darnold not playing and this guy Trey Lance playing instead, when you look at the ratings, the actual ratings on these players, Darnold is 1 point higher in strength, 1 point higher in endurance, 1 point less in intelligence. But when you look at the actual performance in this game, Lance was 19 of 48 and threw an interception. That is not the kind of performance that you generally see from Chicago quarterbacks. So I think that made a big difference in this game, and it was definitely a defensive struggle. I mean, neither team really put up a whole lot of offense. So I think that's what made the difference here.
Yep, I agree. So, Coach, how's your? Let's get your take on your team this week, Mitch.
1 point here, 1 point there. Only thing that matters is Oakland was 3 points better than Chicago this week, and so we'll take that anyway. We could get it. I agree. Honestly, I know there was a big trade during the week between Chicago and Jacksonville, and I thought that Mason Rudolph was going to get the start in this game. So I will say the defensive coordinators had to do some quick adjusting there when they saw Trey Lance come on out of the tunnel. But Definitely was a hard fought defensive game, which I kind of like. So anyway, it was fun.
Starting Trey Lance was a better decision than starting yet another one of the many failed former Kansas City quarterbacks. I'm sure you're all Mason Rudolph once played for Kansas City.
Wow. Okay.
And dumped right back into the free agent pool at the end of that season.
Yeah, pretty much they just started picking them off the trash heap. So, all right, second to last game, we have the New England Patriots hosting the Denver Broncos, and the Patriots ended up taking this one 24-21. Mitch.
Man, I tell you what, yeah, the Patriots got that, a go-ahead score there with just over a couple of minutes there left in the game. Even though when you look, I mean, it kind of looks like, that the score is indicative of the stats. I mean, you go down the list, and yeah, I mean, just about every single category, of the stats, yardage, completion percentages, all that stuff's about the same. But what's interesting is that it took New England 20 more plays to gain the same number of yards that Denver did. So that's what allowed them to eat up that clock and, keep what has been a pretty high potent Denver offense, I think, in check. But hey, congratulations, Mox. You're back in the win column.
There you go. Dean.
Yeah, the key difference was the 3 Denver turnovers in this game, including 2 interceptions. I think that made the difference, and I believe New England won by 3.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, that was the difference here.
Okay, so looks like he's like New England's starting to turn it around a little bit, so that's a good thing. Had a slow start, but they're picking it up a little bit right now. They are sitting at 4-7. They're they're a long ways out, but they're the second in their division. So, anything can happen in these final weeks. So, last game on the docket was the overtime game, and that was our game of the week. It was Atlanta going into Jacksonville, and ended up taking that one 25-22. We're going to start the last game of this week with Mitch.
Well, you know what? Unlike some of the other games where Atlanta, you scratch your head and go, well, they only ran 39 plays, but they won by 10. Or, all right, they got out, gained by 150 yards, but they somehow won by a point. In this case, the exact opposite. Atlanta outgained Jacksonville by nearly 200 yards in this game. And had almost 30 more plays than Jacksonville, but they had to go to overtime to win. And so, hey, congratulations, Dean. You keeping it rolling over there. But man, I tell you, I actually thought that Atlanta was going to win by a bigger margin, but I know that a win's a win. So congratulations.
Nice. Well, there's 2 things I'd say about this. One, and I kind of had a feeling this would happen when I was preparing for this game, it rained. And my team sucks in the rain. Remember, even at the beginning of the 2039 season, I think I opened at Jacksonville, it rained, and my team was terrible. Ended up losing that. That was the first game in the PNFL with Justin Fields, and many compared it to the real-life debut of Justin Fields in Chicago. The second thing is, at one point, my team had a 15-7 lead, but this is another case of missed opportunities as well, just like it was in the Washington-Anaheim game. Although my team led by 15-7, there were, field goals that could have been touchdowns. I believe there was one case where my team actually scored a touchdown. It was called back in penalty and ended up kicking a field goal. So the stats, they made it look more dominant than it was. I mean, in many instances, you can look at your team and think, statistically, you should have a lot more points on the board than you do because you're kicking field goals where you should be scoring touchdowns, or you have a drive, you drive downfield and then don't end up scoring for a variety of reasons. So I think that was why this game was close. And, Jacksonville had a comeback and they tied it by the end of regulation. And again, this is another game where the team that won the toss marched downfield at least enough to kick a field goal and win.
And that was.
I would say something else about this game was kind of odd as well. Because I mentioned before, we're talking about the Oakland-Chicago game. There was a big trade between Jacksonville and Chicago, where Jacksonville sent, Mason Rudolph to Chicago, which was at the time the backup quarterback for Jacksonville. Well, once they traded away Rudolph, Jacksonville signed, a guy off of the free agent wire, DiNucci, who they ended up starting this week, which I find very odd because the DiNucci has worse ratings than the quarterback they already had starting and has even worse ratings than the guy they just traded. So I don't know what's going on in that quarterback room in Jacksonville, but there's something funky going on there. I'll just say that.
Yeah, definitely. So as we come up,
I
go ahead.
Watching the game, and I looked and I said, "Who's the quarterback?"
Yeah.
I think I should go look at the roster and see, because I didn't even recognize that name.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they're just, trying to shuffle something around to find out figure out what's.
I don't know. Could there be some tanking going on in Jacksonville for the number one pick? I don't know. I'm just saying.
I mean, you take 11 season starter and Captain Kirk and put him on the bench. I don't know. Looking at his stats and stuff, I don't see why he wouldn't be in there, but okay.
But in the practice games when I ran rain games, they were close. They were all very close.
Right.
When I ran games that weren't rain, they were fairly comfortable Atlanta wins. I knew this game would be tough if it rained, and sure enough, it rained.
Interesting. All right, so we're going to wrap this week up, and we're going to move into our second segment. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that breakdown of each one of the teams in there this week. So to go into the second segment, there's something that we had talked about pre-show, and I think we had a suggestion, or not mistaken, gentlemen, was a suggestion about picking up off of last week with the play callings and figuring out what plays to make, or when to make your calling. So we're going to start this one off with Dean and let you two just go back and forth on this. The topic was, correct me on this, gentlemen, was knowing when to make the certain play calls in the down and distance situations, and making a determination if it's going to be run left, run right, different pass variances. And we're going to start with Dean. They're trying to get some understanding and insight on that. Then from there, Dean, just go ahead and pass it on over to Mitch.
Yeah, there are many key instances in what plays you call make a difference, even when they're good plays. And I saw this in a few of the games, my game as well as the Washington-Anaheim game. In one particular instance, it was Anaheim and offense. They were just outside of field goal range, probably around the Washington 40-yard range or so. They gained 9 points on first down. They had a 2nd and 1. Now, I know 2nd and 1, there's a lot of different varying opinions. Some people want to play more conservative and just run the ball or call a short pass and complete your first down. Some people use 2nd and 1 as taking a shot at it by calling like a medium pass or something, and I understand all of that. And those are choices people make. But in this instance, the Anaheim offense, the Rams called a pass that was incomplete. Then a 3rd and 1, which kind of surprised me, they called another medium pass play and it went incomplete. And then on 4th and 1, they punted. Now, I fully understand the decision to punt there. That's a bit risky to go for 4th and 1. If you're manually calling plays at about the 40-yard line, you might manually call a 4th down conversion there. But keep in mind, in the profile, it's that whole area of the field from your 35 to the other team's approximate 35, or whatever that setting is, on whether or not you kick a field goal. So if you go for 4th and 1 there, you theoretically could be going for 4th and 1 in your own 36-yard line. So I understand the decision to punt there, but I think the key missed opportunity here was, it looked like Anaheim was about to score either a field goal or touchdown on the Redskins, which even a field goal there would have ended up winning the game. You see that Washington won by 1 point. But by taking that chance on 2nd and 1 and then also calling a pass on 3rd and 1 as well and going incomplete on both, they were in a situation where they had to punt. And that was a notable instance. There were some situations I noticed in my own game where my offense didn't take advantage of opportunities ahead based on play calls like that. So I think that's something that we all need to be mindful when we're working on our profiles, that we may be missing opportunities to score. I mean, 2nd and 1, I know some people will take chances there, but 3rd and 1, and this could even play out with what you do on 3rd and 1 if you're planning on going for it on 4th and 1, for example. So I think those are examples of issues that we really need to take into consideration when we're making those choices in our profiles.
Okay, Mitch, you want to chime in on that and bring your ideas to this?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Dean was talking about is similar to my thought process, right? So when I'm looking at some of these different situations, I might be looking, all right, the situation by itself. So like say 2nd and 1, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, the case might be. But I'm also thinking, all right, so for example, if I'm looking at 3rd and 1, depending on where I'm at on the field, I am going to call, or I'll call a different play, but have in my profile set up a little bit differently, depending on where I'm at in the field, because to Dean's point, if it's 3rd and 1, I might try to take a shot here and there. But one thing I definitely don't want to have happen is to get sacked. Because if I'm 3rd and 1, and even if I have an incompletion, depending on where I'm at in the field, I mean, I can probably feel pretty confident I can get a 4th and 1. But the last thing I want to do is on 3rd and 1, lose yardage, or get sacked or something like that.
That's 2nd and 1. Because 2nd and 1 turns to 3rd and 7.
Yeah, same thing, right? And so, and so that will dictate those percentages. So you do have to kind of weigh the risk versus reward, because, I mean, this past week, play in Chicago, they ran, I think it's a really good example. They ran pass long right plays on 3rd and 1. And on one of those pass long right plays, I sacked their quarterback for, I think, an 8-yard loss, and they punted on 4th down. The next time there was a 3rd and 1 and they ran a pass long right play, they gained 27 yards. Okay. It didn't lead to a score, but they gained 27 yards. But the point is that, there is a risk and reward on those pieces of it. And you really have to, compare what's your risk tolerance, to, what do you want to make sure happens if the play doesn't work, or that scenario doesn't work the way you want to. But 3, what it really boils down to is you need to have a really good idea of what your opponent likes to run against you. And that's whether it's you're, doing those situational defenses or offenses, because that's the key. If you're playing a team that, 90% of the time is running goal line defense on 3rd and 1, you know what? Guess what? Take some shots. You can find some plays to beat goal line defense on 3rd and 1 if your opponent's going to call that 90% of the time. Same thing on the defensive side. If 90% of the time that opponent is going to run that run left off tackle play, you can pick some defenses that will shut that down pretty well. And so, just those are just a few thoughts that I had. Another thing I'll say, that we talked about this in the pre-show, is that, simulating your games and all help you get an idea of what plays are working and whatnot. but there's still a lot of value in watching some practices of your team, because that's where you'll probably catch some unusual profile anomalies. And I had a great example in my game against Chicago this week, which I watch, a good number of sims for my team for this purpose, is to catch those anomalies. Well, I actually had an anomaly that I had not caught pop up in my game. It almost cost me the game, where in the second half of the game, for whatever reason, second half under 5 minutes on 4th and 6 to 10, when I'm up by 3, my fourth down profile said to go for it and to run left play. And so, lo and behold, my shock and dismay when I'm up by 3 points, trying to hang on by my teeth in the middle of the field, thinking, all right, I'm going to punt Chicago deep, and my defense is going to be able to hold. Lo and behold, my team comes out and runs a run left play on 4th and 10. I was like, oh, my goodness. So keep an eye on that. And then please take a look at your end of game timeouts and punts and Hail Mary situations. I've seen so many games this season where teams, had a chance maybe to throw a Hail Mary and they ended up like kneeling in the second half, or they ran an off tackle play when they could have passed the ball and maybe given themselves a chance to win, or something goofy like that going on, or they didn't call timeouts when the other team was running the ball. And so pay attention to your end of game profiles, because I'm not going to say that there's been a ton of games that would have had differences, but I know there's probably a handful of games where the team that lost could have given themselves a pretty good shot to pull the game out if just their timeouts and play calling in the last minute of the game were tightened up. So that's it.
Yeah, I noticed that too. When you watch those games and you think, if this was a real game, people would be saying, what is this coach doing? How can he manage, the 2-minute offense like this? And, you would, those are issues in the profile that I know a lot of us need to work on as well.
Yeah. And they're a pain in the butt, because whenever you're dealing with the timeouts and some of the bugginess of the play or the profile editor, sometimes that can become a pain in the rear end. And honestly, the advice I would give some folks, particularly if you're newer and trying to maneuver through with it, use the CPU profiles that they're out there on the website, and just edit everything that is over 2 minutes to go in the game, and just let the back end of the last 2 minutes of the game go with what Jerry built, because it's pretty darn solid. And at least, you won't go in there and screw up timeouts and all that kind of stuff. But that'd be my recommendation for folks. If you're noticing that, but you're having a hard time with the play editor, with the timeout situation, just go and use the Denver profiles, and just don't edit the last 2 minutes of the game. Just let it go and see what happens.
That's good advice. And it's especially annoying when in that situation your team calls that stop clock play. It takes 8 seconds to run that play, and you think, you could have just ran a pass play in fewer than 8 seconds.
Yeah.
One thing's about a game that's just really stupid.
So basically, just go in there and review you make sure you have good clock management. You brush up on your good clock management skills and take a look and see what needs to be, review them and see if anything needs to be changed or altered, and make sure that, because again, I can attest a lot of my games that I've lost over the past 2 seasons have been within the last 2 minutes, mainly 5 minutes or less, but really within the last 2 minutes, where I'm calling a defense and my opponent's just throwing the ball, calling something completely different. I'm like, oh man, it's just that one play right there. Close, tight game, but last 2 minutes where it can be won or lost. So as we wrap up that segment, gentlemen, good take on that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that, because I know I got some good information out of that. We're going to head over into the Week 12 games. We're going to run through this. First game on the list, you have the Redskins going up against the Giants, and they are giving the Redskins at 8.5 points. Since Dean started off doing the previous week's games, we're going to start with Mitch on the upcoming game. So we'll start with you on this one, Mitch.
Well, it's going to be a blowout. Either Redskins are going to win by blowout or the Giants are going to win by blowout, because it's either going to be good Redskins versus bad Giants or bad Redskins versus good Giants. I don't know which it'll be. I'm going to say Redskins pull this out, but I think it's going to be less than the spread.
Okay, Dean?
I say that Sean prepares when he plays the Redskins, and the good Giants are going to show up. And this is my lead pipe lock of the week. Giants are going to get an upset win in this game and win. Giants win, lead pipe lock.
Ooh, got those lead pipe lock coming back out. Okay. Next game on the list, we have a pick'em game between the Falcons and the Saints. Dean, let you take the lead on this one.
I think this game could end up being fairly close, but I'm going to be cautiously optimistic but confident in that my team wins.
Okay. Mitch?
Well, I always like to do my lead pipe locks on the pick'em game. So this is going to be my LPL of the week. And New Orleans is at home, right?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, those New Orleans crowds go crazy when the Falcons come into town. So I think the Superdome's going to be rocking. Justin Fields, his knees are going to be knocking, and the Saints are going to pull this game out.
Okay. Next game, Cardinals and the Vikings. They are giving the Cardinals 10.5 over the Vikings. Mitch?
Oh, jeez. I know that Barney has it in him to get this game, but I think it's good. It's going to be. I don't think it'll be Barney's week this week, though. I don't think it'll be Barney's week this week.
Okay, Dean?
That spread is too big, especially with the backup quarterback starting for Chicago. But Chicago is a solid team. They'll win, but they will not cover the spread.
Okay. Next game, 49ers going to Detroit to take on the Lions. They are giving the 49ers 7.5. Dean?
That's another game, same thing. I think the 49ers will win, but they're not going to cover the spread. But don't be surprised to see a Detroit upset here. But I think the 49ers will win close, not cover the spread.
Okay. Mitch?
Well, see, this game, after what we were saying earlier about, the Detroit running the BYU offense, knowing, James, he'll probably come out, run the ball 60 times this week. So I'm expecting a low-scoring game, and I'm going with the 49ers, but don't be surprised if suddenly Detroit, just for spite, runs the ball 60 times this week.
Okay. Rams going into Green Bay to take on the Packers. They are giving the Packers 4.5. Mitch?
Ooh. Packer defense usually plays pretty good. Their offense really has stunk the last several weeks. Dobbs, he's due for another big game. I'm going Rams. Going Rams.
Okay, Dean?
Yeah, I agree. And that's what I had already had written here, that Joshua Dobbs is going to rebound, have a solid performance. This is an upset win for the Rams.
Okay. Jets going down to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. They are giving the Jets 13.5. I think that's overinflated, but I'll hear what you guys have to say. Dean?
Yeah, Jacksonville is not tanking. I think they'll be very hard-pressed to win this game. I think they'll fall, but the Jets are not going to cover the spread. That spread is too big.
Mitch?
I think the Jets win, and the Jets win big.
Okay. Are you willing to put the LPL on that one?
I've already done my LPL for this week there, JB. You know that.
Okay. Next one. Colts and the Patriots. They are giving the Patriots 6.5 over the Colts. Mitch, let's start with you.
Ooh. Well, J.J. Taylor, he's going to be out. He won't be playing this week. We saw what happened when he didn't play this past week against the Chargers when he got hurt. So I'm going to go Patriots. I'm going Patriots.
Okay, Dean?
Yeah, I'm also going to say the Patriots are going to win this game, and they're going to cover.
Okay, they're going to cover on that one. Cool. Next one, Chargers, last two division games. Chargers are going in to play the Raiders. They are giving the Raiders 7.5. We're going to start with you on this one, Dean.
Yeah, I think once again, I think we're seeing some a bit of momentum, and Oakland is playing very well, even with the close win against Chicago. And I think this is another instance where the Oakland offense is definitely going to show up, and Raiders are going to win in and cover the spread on this one.
Okay, Mitch?
Again, do I even show up for this game? The Chargers, they beat me in the wild card last year. They came in late and took the division from me last year. They're a game behind me or a couple games behind me, right? I don't even know if I should even practice here, So I don't know. We'll see. It's probably a pick 'em at best. No.
I'm not buying this Lou Holtz out. Your favorite here. You're going to win and cover the spread.
Exactly. Oh, I don't know how he makes it through the doorways at his house. I just don't know. Last game on the list, another division rival. You have the Broncos taking on the Seahawks with the clipped wings. We are going to start with Mitch on this one. Oh, wait a minute. They're giving the Broncos 6.5. Mitch.
Well, I need you to win, so I'm picking the Seahawks. So I want to create some distance in the division. So
that's the only reason why. Wow. Okay.
I'm going Seahawks. I need you to win, but I think that.
So you want me to basically play spoiler now? That's what. Yeah. That's what I'm regulated to spoiler.
Yeah, I need you to knock out. Need you to bring down Denver a little bit. So yeah, I'm going with you.
Okay, Dean.
Seahawks need this win and are still in the playoff hunt, and I think the upset is going to happen. I think we're going to see many upsets this week. I've predicted a number of upsets, and that's fitting with the trend we've seen over the last 4 or 5 weeks to see a lot of upsets. So picking the Seahawks here for an upset, not just to that the Broncos will cover the spread. Seahawks are going to outright win this game in an upset.
That's right. Go Hawks. Okay, we've come to the end of the show. Any final words for you, Dean?
No, just good luck in our games this coming week.
All right. Anything for you, Mitch, before you take it home?
Oh, let me think. Let's get it.